a couple of things that are going through my mind, like right now, is the first is this: like we tend to start a year and we tend to think in terms of these bumpers, right? Like January to January or December 30, January 1 to December 31. And I would really push you, like I would encourage you right now to not think too much about the year. Because for me, I mean, 21 years into this, for me, what usually happens is when I think about the year, I have this weird idea that I have time. I have this weird idea that I have plenty of time, and I really don't. And I have these silly thoughts like, well, if I'm a little bit behind in Q1, like I'll make it up in Q2 and Q3. And in reality, it's kind of like it really walks the same line as like a fitness journey. And if you're really watching what you're eating or being really careful about what you're consuming, sometimes you'll have an extra bite of this or an extra bite of that, or I'll accidentally eat 2 bags of chips before I realize what's going on. And then I'll just think to myself, well, I'll work extra hard tomorrow, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. And the truth is, none of it works. The only thing that works repeatedly, the only thing that works long term is little tiny habits over and over and over and over again. And when you think about your year and when you think about the income that you make and you think about the money that you want to be able to enjoy, it's going to directly reflect a bunch of little habits repeated again and again and again. It will not be like what scares me. I don't do any one-on-one coaching anymore, but I used to really like it. God, it's probably been 14 or 15 years since I got to do very much of it. But I used to love it. And what really concerned me was when somebody would have a really big day or a really big week, because usually a really big day or a really big week would be followed by the absolute opposite. And I remember the very first time I ever got or earned 10 listings in a month. I was like 2 weeks into the following month and I'd worked so hard, and it was like the 12th or 14th of the following month or whatever. And one of my clients called and they were really kind, and they're like, "Hey, Cody, I just really like sorry for bothering you," like that kind of person. Right. And they said, "We just really like, we don't like, we know that you're an expert, and we're a little bit worried. We thought we'd have more showings by now." And as they're talking, I'm putting two and two together in my brain about who this person even is. And I asked a couple of questions and I went, you know what? I know exactly why you don't have any showings yet. I forgot to put your listing in the MLS. And they promptly released me to go work with other sellers. I mean, they were very kind about it because that's who they are. But the reason I tell that story to you is a couple things. Number one, I had never listed 10 homes in a month. I hadn't done it before. And so that next month, man, I felt like my hair was on fire. Like it was ridiculous. I was as busy or busier than I'd ever been. Like I forgot to put it in the MLS. Now, the next month, the month after listing 10, I listed like 6. And the month after that was like 5. Then I went back to 7 or 8. Then I went back to 10. Then eventually I started hitting 10 month after month after month after month. And I tell you that story for another reason, because I think that we have this myopic thought that we achieve some goal to never slide back. We achieve some number to never see the opposite again. And in reality, what I've learned over and over and over again is we flirt with success. We flirt with the number. And if the number's like 10 a month, well, you might hit it once and then fall back for 2 or 3 or 4. Then you might hit it again. You might have a year that if your goal is 10 listings in a month, you might have a year that you hit it 2 or 3 times, and the next year maybe 5 or 7, and then maybe the next year. Do you get my point? And before you know it, when you look down, you go, huh, not only do I expect to take 10 listings every month, I have the business behind it to actually produce 10 listings a month. And those things don't happen simultaneously. Those things don't happen at the same day. They do take time to get there. And that's where the saying comes from. We tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, but we dramatically underestimate what we can do in 5 years or 10 years. There's nobody listening to me right now that couldn't be literally anywhere you wanted to be in 5 or 7 or 10 years. And you might look down right now and go, Cody, that sounds amazing. I'm doing okay, but I don't have this and I don't have that. I know. But 5 years from now, you could have your own plane. 8 years from now, you could have an entire charter school developed somewhere that's always been on your heart. 10 years from now, you could have an entire program underwritten and funded by the excess or surplus money that you make. Those things are all true. But what's also true is you could be 3 years or 5 years or 8 years from now sucking wind. That's just as true. Both of those things have truth in them. The challenge is you choose which road you want to be on. And the habits of what you do every day are going to predict what road you're actually on. They're going to tell the truth. I learned one of the greatest lessons I learned from one of the best leaders in my life. She taught me this, and maybe you've lived long enough that you've learned this too, either directly or indirectly. She said, Cody, I never listen to words. Talk is cheap. I don't listen to people's words. I just don't. I rarely watch and I rarely pay attention to their actions. There's an old saying, actions speak louder than words. And I get it, like in its context, I 100% get it. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. But has there ever been a time in your life that somebody has been able to fool you with actions for a short period of time? Has there ever been a time in your life you have fooled yourself with some actions for a short period of time? It's like that day that you go and you buy a gym membership and you're like, all right, this is it. I know I've done it before, but this is it. I went to Lululemon. I got some new clothes. I got a new gym bag. I've got a gym membership. I get up at 5 a.m. now. And you do it for 4 days, or you do it for 10 days. Like you do it, but then of course it changes again. I don't listen to people's words. I rarely put much thought or effort or time into watching their actions. But what I've always learned over time is to always pay attention to people's patterns. How someone shows up repeatedly over time is exactly who they are. Now, they could choose to change it, but that's exactly who they are. It's who they're being. And I want you to hear that, and I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about how are your own patterns showing up. For most of us, what we do is we treat our business like a triage. We treat our business like a knee-jerk reaction. We look down and we go, oh, I'm running out of money, or I just sold my last listing, or I just put my last buyer in escrow. So I have to go back to the tree and shake it again and find some more. And if that's how we operate, then we'll forever be stuck there. There's nobody listening to me right now that couldn't wake up on the first of the month at some point and say, I know I'll have 5 escrows this month. I wonder if I can get 6. I wonder if 7's possible. I might have a terrible month and only put 4 in escrow. Imagine waking up and thinking that, though. You realize in most parts of the country, in most markets, 5 escrows a month is about a $60,000 GCI month. And doing it again and again and again and again puts you about 700 or 720,000 in GCI. I grew up like some of you did, incredibly poor. I remember standing in the lunch line, like I was in the poor kid, like the free lunch line. And I had pride. I had so much pride that I wouldn't go over to like the free lunch, lady cart until the very end of lunch. Like I would talk to friends and walk around and whatever. And then when nobody else was looking, everybody else was out on the playground, I'd walk over to the cart and she would hand me like a brown paper sack. And it was embarrassing to stand in that line. And she was really, really kind to me. And quite often she'd give me 2 bags if there was enough. And those were usually the best meals for me. At 14, 9th grade, I completed the 9th grade with a 1.8 GPA to never return to high school. Never got a diploma, never graduated. I say that to say this. They don't make people like me surgeons. They don't make people like me doctors. People like me don't become attorneys and argue in front of the Supreme Court. We typically become entrepreneurs. We typically become salespeople. We typically become the type of person that has to sell, hustle, outwork, whatever thing you want to wrap around it. That's who we become. Every single one of us is self-made. It's just the successful people who are willing to admit it. Think about that for a minute. We're all self-made. The way we look, the way we act, the way we talk, the people that we hang out with, the money that we have, the things that we do, the habits that we have, the vacations that we take, all that stuff, the business that we have, all of that, we're all self-made. People say things like, oh, this is a self-made person. So are you. But if we're going to be living a dream anyway, like if we're going to make everything up as we go anyway, because everybody does, why not make up a really great story? It's really difficult to become who you want to be when you're stuck thinking about who you were. I don't think that change has to take a long time. I think that change is actually incredibly fast. I think that sustained change over time has to take time. There's no other way around it. But you could literally right now snap your fingers and say, I've changed. I've 100% changed. Everything is different from this moment forward. Then you actually have to do the work. But change starts in the brain. And the only thing that causes change is to be completely 100% finished with how you are. And you look down one day and you say, no more days like this. You look down one day and you say, this is the last time I'm going to look at my bank account and have this feeling. This is the last time I'm going to step on this scale and think these thoughts. Last time. But it takes a tremendous amount of pain. Like the pain has to get to here before the pain of changing it is less than the pain of keeping it. And most of us, what we do is we hang on to it. Most of us, what we do is we hang on to the challenges we have, we hang on to the pain that we have, and then we give credit to it. And it was probably 6 years ago or 7 years ago, Gary said to me, he said, be careful about the limitations that you argue for, because you might get to keep them. And here's what he meant, right? Like each one of us has a whole list of reasons why we don't achieve something. Well, Cody, you don't understand this. I've got this and this and this in my way. Get out of here, man. I could probably write the list for you. Like I'm a human being and you're a human being, and we're probably way more alike than we are different. And most people have similar challenges. They have different topics or they have different labels to it, but the challenges kind of remain the same. I could probably write your list for you. What I've learned, though, is I don't need a list of the 12 reasons something won't work. I need a list with one way that it could. Just one way that it could. I believe at the end of the day, you're going to be paid in proportion to the level of questions that you ask. And that's questions outward, right? That's why scripts and dialogues matter. It's why lead generation matters. But remember, you've got two hands. There's lead generation and there's lead follow-up. Lead generation will find you a sale, but lead follow-up will find you a business. Those are two wildly different things. What most agents do is we look down, we're broke, or we don't have the business we want, so we lead generate. And one of the worst things that happens, because lead generation is like turning over rocks. One of the worst things that happens is we lead generate and we find a sale. Well, as soon as we find a sale, we typically go and put all of our effort and time into that. And then the cycle goes again and again and again. The number one reason to lead generate today is to build follow-up for tomorrow. But that's not the number one reason why most agents do it. The number one reason why most agents do it is because they're avoiding being broke. For as long as lead generation falls in a box of avoidance of being broke, you'll probably be broke at some level forever. The minute, though, that you say, nope, lead generation is actually so that I can build up a database, so that I can build up a data bank, so that I could build up literally like a conveyor belt of opportunity, a conveyor belt of leads for next month, next year, and 4 years from now. When that's the purpose of lead generation, you'll still turn over rocks and find sales for today. And hopefully you find enough to stay in business. But that's not called a business. That's called hoping you make it. A real business is one where you look down and you go, man, this is great. I called this person 4 years ago and they're finally now doing business with me. Everybody on here knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's just that we don't want to put in the 4 years to get there. So instead, we put in 10 or 15 years and never get there. How ridiculous is that? But every single one of us has done it. I'll end with this thought. It's no different than fitness. I was telling someone last night, I said, almost everybody could have almost any body they wanted in 12 to 20 weeks. Go and Google 20-week fitness transformation. Just Google it. Have fun with it. And you will see people that look one wildly different way, and 20 weeks later, incredibly different. They're on stage at a physique show, which may or may not be your thing, but that's not my point. My point is this. What most of us do is we play around for a decade or 4 with something that we could actually achieve in 15 weeks. We just F around with it for 20 years first and then never do it. We dance around it, but never actually do the work. We talk about it, but we actually don't want to be about it. Those are 2 incredibly different things. Most of us could be anywhere we want to be. The problem is we're exactly where we're willing to be. And you look down one day and you say, I'm unwilling to be here. Damn it, damn it, damn it. I am unwilling to stay one more day like this. Won't do it. Won't do it. I remember the first fitness trainer I worked with, I was I'd be 65 pounds heavier than I am today. I'm 5'11", so I'm not super tall, but 65 pounds more on my body did not look good. And I remember asking the trainer, how long is this going to take? And he chuckled and said, well, you didn't get this fat in a day, so it's not going to happen in a day. I was like, great. Thanks for that. But you know what? It didn't take as long as I thought it would. And it actually wasn't even as hard as I thought it would be. That's one of the great misnomers of success. We tend to think that people that have it were born with some chromosome that we weren't. Like they got some birthday lottery that we didn't. That's horseshit. They're exactly like you. They have the same challenges, the same thoughts, the same fears. The difference is their reaction or response to them looks different. But they're not different. They're not people. I mean, I was introduced one day and someone said, this guy is fearless. And I mean, it wasn't my place to argue with the person who was doing the event. But I remember walking up on stage just going, that is garbage. You don't even know what I was afraid of this morning. Like, that's a load of garbage. And I wish you didn't just tell these 1,000 people that, because they're gonna listen to me and think he's fearless, but inside they're gonna go, I have fears, so I can't do what he does. That's stupid. I've not met anybody who's fearless. Literally no one. One of my favorite books, the author is Susan Jeffers. She talked about wealthy people. And one of the greatest things, I mean, I'll save you the book. The book wasn't amazing, but one of the greatest things she said in the book was that wealthy people feel fear. They just do it anyway. And broke people feel fear. They just let it stop them. That's the only difference. But we run around thinking that somebody has something, they have some crazy wiring that we don't. That somehow, like in their brain, they just go, no obstacle. Oh, get out of here, man. We think things like, failure is not an option. Screw you. Failure is 100% going to be an option. You tell somebody at divorce court today, failure is not an option. They'll go, yes, it was. Failure is always an option. When I coach with people, and I wish I could do more of it. The only real one-on-one coaching I'm doing right now is the free stuff that I do. I do these 10-minute blocks, and I'll put it on Instagram. If we're not connected there, I'm Cody Gibson 1. That's probably the best place to connect. But I'll do these 10-minute blocks in my calendar whenever I have time, and I'll load 30 or 40 of them and say, hey, if you want to do it, it's free. Don't care if you're in real estate or out of real estate. Don't care what brokerage you're at. None of that matters to me. But it's fun because it's short, it's fast, it's unscripted. I don't even know who's there until I turn the camera on, and that's when I figure out what we're going to talk about. But what I've learned time and time and time again is that it scares me when people say things like failure is not an option. It's for sure an option. But failure isn't some crazy destination. Failure is a result of activities and a result of habits and decisions. Just like success is a result of actions and decisions. You just got to choose which one you want. And I believe, for me at least, it's just as hard to fail repeatedly as it is to succeed. In fact, failing repeatedly is probably harder to me than succeeding, because with failure repeatedly, I have to think about it. I have to lay in bed and know I'm not who I thought I could be. I'm not doing what I know that I could. So failure is actually a heavier weight than success. Just put that rock down and pick up a different one. Both are going to be heavy, and both are probably going to be heavier than you want for some period of time. But the one that you choose to carry around is going to dictate what it looks like at the end of the day. You'll be glad you did, or you'll wish you had. I don't know another way to do that. So that's all the words I can say in 21 minutes without taking a breath. Thank you very, very much for having me. It's been absolutely my pleasure. If we're not connected on Instagram, Cody Gibson 1, that's the best. Cody Gibson on Facebook. And of course, my email is codygibson@kw, super easy to find. And my mobile is 907-529-5172. 907-529-5172. And I never used to hand that out, but ever since COVID, I've learned there's a lot of hurting people. And this has been tough on everybody. It's just flat been hard. There's no two ways around that. You should be tired right now. You should be questioning what the hell you're doing right now. Welcome to Earth, Scooter. Like, we're all doing that. I wake up earlier than I've ever been up right now, and I grab my phone and I go to work. I'm up later than I've ever been, and I'm on my phone working. I'm working more weekends than I've ever worked. You know why? Because we don't know what to do right now. You should be questioning. But this is the time that you put in extra time. This is the time that you put in extra work. Nobody has a roadmap for this. Nobody has a book to read about this, for heaven's sakes. If you look to your left and look to your right, if you're sitting in a room, you could literally think, neither of these people know what they're doing. And I don't know what I'm doing. And when you realize that, it's a beautiful place to be, because you realize we're making it up anyway. Let's make up something amazing. So thank you for having